Okay, so what we did before, we had the ball roll down the ramp because we changed the collision detection on the ramp to a static mesh, and that worked fine. In addition to that, we can get a little bit more sophisticated here. We're going to get into this button here, UI, the user interface, which is going to show us a bunch of information about any objects we select. Like, let's take the sphere here. Well, it tells us that it's a sphere. We could set its state, for example, whether we wanted it to be a static mesh or what, which we'll leave it alone. We'll leave those alone for now. You can also do things with it, like give it a higher density. Right now it's at 0.2. I have to tell you, this particular program, those numbers don't mean a lot. I mean, they work if you change them, but I don't know what that signifies. If you set it to 10 or something, it'll just be a heavier object. And let's try that as an experiment here instead of a, now let's take, for example, let's take our static mesh, and it's a group now. I can change what it's shaped like if I double click on it, and I'll just do what I did before. I'll just draw a line from there to there and push it on down so it's just a triangle. And if I click outside that, we close the group so we can select it. It's still a static mesh, so it should allow us to let the ball into those spaces on either side. That works pretty well. Let's try putting on top of this thing kind of a balance beam. What I'll do is draw a box here, kind of a little platform, and I'm going to move that. I'm going to move it from that midpoint over to the edge. So right now what happens if you hit play, nothing really happens because it's perfectly balanced. It's right in the middle. Let's try putting a cylinder on top of it. Run that simulation. Okay, now the weight of the cylinder is pushing it down. Let's take that cylinder and let's try moving it. We're going to have a little bit of a problem. I'm going to move it to the other end. I'm going to tap the control key and let it go. So we're copying it. Now what's going to happen, they're the same weight, but one of them is closer to the midline, so that's the one probably that's... No, we have a pretty well balanced scenario there. Okay, there, you take one off, it falls down. Alright, so it was pretty balanced right off the bat. That's alright. What we'll do is take one of them and kick the density up. Try around 12 and see what happens to it. I selected it, I came over here, I typed in 1, 2, hit play. Whoa, so it's much heavier than the one I copied of it, although they're otherwise identical. So it naturally pushed itself down more than the other one did. So right there you can tell the density at least means something. It just doesn't have a particular definition as far as I know. It doesn't seem to have it doesn't seem to represent pounds per square inch or cubic inch or any of that stuff. Let's look at some of the other stuff you can do with this. You'll probably go pretty nuts with this pretty quick. Let's make a rocket. We'll put a cone out here and drop it into place, and with it selected, it tells us that that cone could be made a thruster, which is where our rocket comes in. Let's kick that up here. 0 isn't going to do anything for us. You have to check it, but you have to give it a number for thrust. And here I really just started having to put in different numbers until I get a result. Right there, nothing happened. I'm just going to keep increasing these numbers. Oh, there we go. So we have liftoff. The cone, the objects always go up when you make them a thruster, and they go up as fast as they can given their weight. If I increase the weight of the thing, it doesn't even have enough force to get off the ground there. Let's keep reducing that and try to see if we can get it to where it'll... Yeah, now it's pushing up real slow. It's got the same thrust, but it's heavier, so it doesn't go up as fast. And then, like I say, they always go up, but you can rotate the thing around holding down the shift key here so we keep the angle right. Let's rotate it a little bit like that, maybe move it up in the air, and then when we hit play you'll see that it kind of stumbles. Let's give it, let's take down the weight. Try that. Make sure you got a decimal in there. So now it just goes straight. It goes in the direction of its nose. If you do it, it'll work with anything, a sphere or anything that you make. However, it's always going to go up until you rotate it to another direction. You've got some other ones here. For example, the emitter. Let's make this into an emitter, and let's give it like a 12 and see what happens. So the sphere is now an emitter, and we're going to have to change some other numbers. The rate at which it emits copies of itself, and the lifetime for the copies. I'm just using 12 for all of them. And now you can see it's spraying out very short-lived copies of itself. Let's increase the lifetime of those copies. 122. And now it's just going to keep on spraying out these spheres while it rolls around. Magnet is also, we'll come back to magnet, I think. It's not hard to work with, but you have to make other objects magnetic to do that. Okay, that's enough for this one. Try to get a balance beam working, and then show me that you've done that. I'm probably going to give you a checklist of things to accomplish in this program.